I've got to say, I find the New South Wales government a little bit confusing. Just when I start to think, you know what, okay, Dominic Perrottet is going to sort of straighten the ship up. It's going to become a lot more sensible. And I must be honest, a couple of things happened today that make the New South Wales government more sensible. When I was on the radio about 10 years ago, the story of Brodie Donegan was one that moved me to tears for the most obvious of reasons, because you know why I would care about little ones, and particularly little ones that aren't able to live. Brodie was walking home when a drugged-up driver ended up knocking her over. The results of that meant that her little girl Zoe, who was due to be born, was not. At the time, I remember campaigning for a law to recognise that somebody who is further along than 20 weeks, who if they had a miscarriage would be given a death certificate because that is seen to be a loss to the family, that somebody could be held criminally responsible. Perhaps not full attempted murder, but clearly the life that has been lost, the life that you mourn, the life that is recognised with a with a death certificate, should count in court. But some disgraceful people told lies, and they pretended that to put a law in place to punish someone for what happened to Brodie and what happened to Zoe was somehow going to criminalise abortion. It was bullshit. It was nasty. But thankfully, the New South Wales government, firstly, has cleared up the issue when it comes to abortion, but now will introduce Zoe's law. Others have tried to do this, and Brodie has been hurt by the process. It's been a while since I've had a chance to talk to her, but it was awesome to see today that the Attorney-General was by her side in New South Wales announcing that there will be criminal sanctions for people who, in a criminal act, end up causing injury that results in the death of a baby like Zoe. This is a reason to cheer for the New South Wales government tonight.
There will be a new offence where there is a loss of fetus as well, and the maximum penalty for that new offence will be 3 years on top of the maximum penalty for the existing offence. This will recognise in the law the loss that families suffer when there is a loss of a fetus and the terrible consequences that flow to affected families.
Again, in New South Wales, if your pregnancy is longer than 20 weeks and for whatever reason you lost it, they would give you a death certificate because you can feel the kicking, you know the sex, you know the little life that is on its way in a few weeks' time to being a viable birth and then a little human being. Now, those death certificates really mean something because they're a recognition of the existence at one point in time of that child. This is not about abortion. It was never about abortion. And thankfully, they've cleared up whatever misinterpretations there were on this law, and it means that a lady who had, as I said, been bruised by the system, had been used by some politicians, had been attacked on social media by the same lunatics that were lying about abortion, well, she finally got her day to stand with the government who are promising to get this done.
Even though it has taken a long time, it's obviously stopped and started a lot over the years, so it hasn't been the entire time. Yeah, I'm just really happy that we've finally got there, and it's just sort of not left hanging, I guess.
God love you, Brodie. All the best. Strength and love to you, the rest of the family, and please support her small business as well. Make sure that we put up the deets on socials as well. She's a good lady. But then on the other side of the New South Wales government today, just when they do something right, they come up with something weird. Matt Kean, of course, used to be the Environment Minister in New South Wales. Now he's the Treasurer. It was part of a trade-off deal for him not being the Deputy Liberal leader so Perrottet could become the Premier. Yeah, I know. And this bloke is apparently a Liberal but loves criticising the federal government. Perhaps he's still on a WhatsApp group with the former Prime Minister. You know, the one he suggested should be employed by the New South Wales government. Just an idea. Here in part is what he had to say today about, among other things, electric vehicles.
This is a revolution which is coming, whether Barnaby Joyce likes it or not. The reality is that the right-hand car markets are changing to electric, and we need to be ready to accept those vehicles into the Australian market. The last thing we want is for Australia to become the dumping ground for the vehicles that the rest of the world doesn't want.
And how's this? Remember how one of the problems that the Australian government had with the Victorian government doing Belton Road, one of the problems that people have with the Port of Darwin is when state or local governments do deals with international powers. Well, guess what Matt Kean, a Liberal, knowing that an election is just a few months away, has done? He's committed a State of Australia to an international agreement when it comes to the phasing out of petrol cars. And he admitted it on the air here on Sky today.
Is that correct? Will the government be signing up to that?
Kieran, I've already signed the document and we're just working through with DFAT to get that formalised. But yes, New South Wales will be a participant in this. In fact, because of the policies we've put in place, we're already well on target to hit those ambitious targets set by the COP. In fact, we'll have 50% of all new cars sold in New South Wales being electric by 2030.
And it's easy to say that they're really awesome when you earn more than $200,000 like the Treasurer of New South Wales. But as we showed you last night, the average cost of a new car in Australia is $40,000. The most popular electric car is the Tesla Model 3, and that's $60,000. Will you be making up the difference, Matt? I mean, personally, not the taxpayer. That's the guy in charge of the money. So work out whether the New South Wales government gets a thumbs up or a thumbs down today.